The rewards are mine. After a long, hard-fought battle against an enemy empire, let's see what this planet has to offer. Son of a... Like a machine gun that won't stop firing, Paradox has now released Distant Stars, another DLC story pack right after and on the heels of their Monster 2.0 patch that was accompanied by Apocalypse. Having played a couple games of 2.1 with Distant Stars, I'm going to give you my recap of what I think of this DLC, is it worth your money, and my thoughts on patch 2.1 in general. Say what you will about Paradox, but they are a sharp group of people down there working. And although their technical skills of fixing certain bugs that have been around forever may be in question, unfortunately their marketing is not. Paradox has doubled down with Distant Stars by adding a ton of what makes that game so great, and that is the sense of discovery, exploration, and great anomalies that are interesting and fun to explore. In the several games that I played, I actually discovered dozens of different anomalies that didn't carry on between the games that I played, and that's saying something considering a single game on a large galaxy map can take you up to and including 20 to 25 hours. On top of new discoveries, you've also got a few Leviathans that end up making their way into Distant Stars. Now, Leviathans were normally on the DLC pack, Leviathans, but a few more have been added here. Most of the Leviathans are point, shoot, collect rewards, but there are a few that offer a more interesting dynamic, like the one you got on screen. Not going to spoil anything, but it's actually kind of cool. The number one selling feature of Distant Stars definitely has to be the L-Gate, and the L-Gate is basically like a gateway versus a wormhole, but generally speaking, you have to research a whole bunch of tech to get to this strange thing. Once you get there, you open it up and you find out it's nothing but a disappointment. You think you're going out with the prom date. In fact, you're going to the movies with your cousin, and it's half off night. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but once you open up these L-Gates, you're RNG'd into 1 to 3 different options. None of them are really awesome. It's so much so that Paradox has actually come out and said that the underwhelming nature of the L-Gates is a bit of a stumble on their part. It was like, what, you didn't want to pay $10 to see a movie with your cousin for the option of a dry handy J afterwards? The answer is always no. Sure, the L-Gates really didn't impress me that much, but one thing did. Science vessels get this brand new experimental subspace drive where they can actually go into a subspace tunnel and pop out the other side of the universe. It makes reverse engineering Fallen Empire tech that you've been battled halfway across the galaxy a breeze, where otherwise it would have been an arduous and brutal task. I say bravo. They should bring this back into the game for fleets that can only travel this way within their own borders. Hint, hint, do it. 2.1 has changed the way that hyperlane generation works so they can create different islands in space. Makes choke points more viable, which I appreciate because I like choke points. It's not a joke, I just like jokes. They also made larger and more interesting systems. Binary, trinary star systems, or this one filled with so many black holes. I haven't seen many black holes since I got knocked out and woke up in Mexico City. Now I'm going to talk about 2.1 versus 2.0 and some of the improvements that I've made, and generally speaking there has been quite a few improvements. The number one that I noticed was definitely the AI, but that's not really saying much. It's like spit shining dirty shoes. No one's impressed. The second big improvement that I noticed is definitely the Fleet Manager. In 2.0, if you crossed eyes to the Fleet Manager, it would smash your face with a direct blow. Now it's not so bad, but that being said, I feel sometimes like I'm using a fork to eat soup when I'm playing with the Fleet Manager. And I know it's a useful tool, it doesn't seem to be implemented very well. There's so many different odd things and bugs that are still present in 2.1 that I get the funny feeling won't be fixed till 2.5. Speaking of bugs, 2.1 isn't free of them either. I mean, look at this gem. I've got a giant floating bowl of sunlight that's just sitting in the galaxy, and this isn't uncommon when it comes to graphical changes and bugs. One of the worst bugs in Distant Stars is actually when you open up the L-Gate. Apparently a memory leak opens up that makes the unbidden look like a pussycat. People have reported 5 to 10 second delays in their game, and I've experienced this too. It literally made the game unplayable, and this is a guy who's played 1.9 in a 5,000 star modded game deep into 2600, so I know what lag looks like. This is definitely something completely different, and the devs have yet to fix it even when I'm playing the 2.1 beta patch. There's a monkey on my back and I want to get it off, and that monkey is 2.1's expansion time. The time it takes to build every single outpost and every single star system, it takes way too long. And I don't mean the actual time it takes for your construction ship and the actual construction of that outpost. I mean the mineral and influence cost has slowed this game to an unbearable slow pace. I swear, if the expansion phase in Stellaris 2.1 and Evolution had a race, Evolution would win. In the several games that I played in 2.1, it took me almost 3 to 4 hours to get out of this phase. Now that wouldn't necessarily be an issue if there was interesting and decisive choices that you had to make, but unfortunately you don't. Aside from blocking off the enemy empire from snaking in and around yours, there aren't too many meaningful decisions in this phase, so it just ends up becoming this giant blob of trying to acquire as many minerals as you possibly can while keeping your influence topped up so you can outpace someone else. It's a giant drag, and it needs to be fixed, because right now Stellaris at the beginning part of this game is about as enjoyable as a kick to the crotch. If I sound somehow violent, it's only because the violence has been taken away from this phase as well. The beginning part of the Stellaris has been designed in a way that early wars are almost completely unviable. So that means not only can you not go to attack an enemy empire early, and if you do, maybe you'll get one system, but planets are completely out of the question until the middle part of the game, but they also slowed it down. Ugh. Trudging through this is very, very difficult, especially when you know at the end it's nothing but good treasures. Like crawling out of a drainage pipe at Shawshank Redemption Prison, once you get into the middle phase of the game, you realize that there's been a significant amount of improvements from 2.0. First off, I saw a lot of interesting battles between the enemy empires amongst each other, including claiming systems and taking systems back and forth. I've seen fanatical purifiers end up gearing up enough to take over several empires and become a galactic threat. A lot of diplomacy, including a lot of interesting trades from the enemy empires and allies. I've seen huge federations being formed. I've seen 2 AI uprisings, war in heaven, and a galactic crisis that was far more balanced than it was in 2.0. Distant Stars ends up being a little bit of a mixed bag. If you really enjoyed the changes in 2.0 and can overlook some of the monster bugs and imbalances that it brought, and some of the ones that haven't been fixed in 2.1, enjoy exploration and discovery, this is a must-buy for you. It becomes very difficult to actually recommend Distant Stars to people who didn't like 2.1, and not necessarily for the implementation of different mechanics, but how they were implemented in general, the amount of bugs and imbalances that it brought. Unfortunately, 2.1, although good in some areas, still lacks in others. I feel like sometimes Paradox has invited us over for a nice steak dinner. When I get there expecting steak, he puts down a big bowl of clam chowder. Clam chowder's fine, but I was expecting steak. And they tell me that steak's coming, but it's not coming yet. That's exactly what 2.1 is. I know steak's coming, but it's not here yet, so I'm eating clam chowder. I will say that I really did enjoy my time with 2.1 in the games that I played, with 2 caveats. Number 1, I had to get past the expansion phase to really enjoy the meat and potatoes of this game. Number 2, that I could overlook some of the more nasty bugs that occurred in 2.1. As you may or may not know, Europe pretty much completely shuts down for the entire summer because they don't work, so don't expect any type of major patches in the next couple months, meaning that 2.1 is where we're going to be pretty much till fall. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it doesn't mean that they're going to be introducing any type of massive DLC that are going to break this game in further. But that being said, I really do think that they are going in the proper direction in 2.1, and I really am looking forward to some of these smaller patches that are going to be coming out before 2.2. So this has been Army P, ranting your ear off, and thanks for listening.